Have a seat, Ajaay. Okay, then I have Manish Raj, Vice President Global Sales and New Initiatives, Moveinsync Technology Solutions. And finally, I have my good friend Akshay Kapoor, Head of Sales, Asia Pacific, CWT. Can't hear me? You're gonna dance. You're gonna move your receiver and find the best spot. Okay, there will be time for an audience Q&A in the later part of the session, but for now, I'll get a discussion going. It seems that I'm better when I'm standing. Okay. Well, to our media friends in the audience, our panelists welcome your interest in reporting on the findings from this discussion. And they ask that you alert them to your plans to quote them, as they will have much more data points and observations to share beyond what we can address within this very compact discussion. So let's begin with a question for Akshay. As a global travel management company, CWT has a broad overview of all aspects of corporate travel. Can you talk us through changes in the travel landscape that have the biggest impact on the cost of travel?
Yeah, sure. I hope you guys can hear me okay. It seems working okay. Yeah, great. Thanks. As you might have seen within your own spaces as well, the travel costs are definitely on the rise. They are definitely higher than the pre-pandemic levels as well, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. So there are loads of factors at play, but it is a kind of a perfect storm. Can you hear me okay? Oh, yeah. So it is a mix of demand dynamics as well as the supply dynamics. So if you look at 2022 so far, at the moment we see on the air side, against 2022, high double-digit growth in the 40% or more across the globe, and that has a lot to do with the pent-up demand coming in. The customers across the CWT spectrum understand that they have to travel and have to get their teams together to meet their customers, and since the last 2 years, they have been waiting for this time where it is relatively safe to travel and the restrictions are not as difficult as they used to be perhaps last year. And thus that pent-up demand is kind of playing a huge part in that area as well. Now, from a supply standpoint, we have seen that it hasn't caught up as fast as the demand has. So we have seen that the airlines, the hotels are still trying to get to the capacity that they were having pre-pandemic levels as well. And that has primarily a lot to do with the talent crunch that we see in the market as well. And we've seen a lot of our colleagues and friends leave the industry during the pandemic, and that talent more or less is not coming back. So thus, across the travel spectrum, we are seeing that there is a huge challenge as far as the supply dynamics are let's say concerned as well. And the other thing that we also see across the spectrum is this competition from leisure travel as well, because that has always been something that business travel had to compete with, but not in the premium areas. So whether it be that business class ticket or whether it be staying in those 5-star hotels or business-friendly hotels, because the supply is so constrained, there's a lot of that leisure travel also starting to compete. So it is a kind of a perfect storm, that, as I said before as well, and that is causing a lot of, let's say, challenges for the customers today if they are looking to find, let's say, a more budget-friendly way to travel. That kind of a thing does not exist at the moment, at least is what we are seeing across the spectrum.
Now we can see from the slide behind that the prices for the borders have reopened. Can you talk about the comparison between the prices now and forward in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, As far as the buyers are concerned, I don't have a lot of good news from that perspective. Yes, the prices are incredibly higher than 2021, as you can see from those numbers up there, but that trend doesn't seem to be going away. We do expect that globally we will see in the high eights percent increase in the air average ticket prices as well as the hotel average room rates. In the region, you see these numbers, which are pretty high as well, and it is mainly driven by, I think, two major markets which are right now primarily open: Australia as well as Singapore for a lot of this business travel, and we see that there are different stories in different parts of, of the region as well. Today, we do expect that next year, when it comes to China, if it does open up, the region will have a huge amount of, let's say, impact, both from that leisure travel coming into these markets, as well as, of course, the business travel. We have to let's say, understand the fact that no recovery in Asia is going to be complete without China and Hong Kong coming, let's say, into the foray. And when that happens, that will be the real test for the industry as well as for the region as well. But so far, we do see that the prices are going to be higher because that challenges that I talked about when it comes to the supply dynamics, as well as that pent-up demand doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and that is true for even the meetings and the MICE travel as well, because that part of the business is seeing unprecedented growth and unprecedented demand coming in from the customers as well. So a lot of these competing factors is what you see those let's say numbers coming up to be. I can take one example. Singapore is a good let's say example. The average room rates in Singapore are higher than anywhere that you've seen before, and we expect them to go even more moving forward. So as a buyer, when you have negotiated those rates for Singapore, you can expect that kind of dynamic pricing is going to be the way that the hotels in Singapore will look at it, because we do see that demand is going to outstrip supply big time in Singapore, especially if and when China opens up.
Yeah, yeah. Singapore's room rates is too.
I think Singapore was one market that actually bucked the trend.
Yeah.
We saw in 2020, 2021, the prices actually go down across the region for hotels and airlines. Singapore was perhaps the only market where we saw actually an uptick. So prices in Singapore put high double-digit growth in 2022. You just have to take that into account, that it was not a low base to start. Everywhere else, Australia or any other market in the region, for example, India, hoteliers were struggling to make ends meet, and the average room rate was very low.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Akshay, for the frightening news. This is travel and events. Can we broaden the budget insight to both areas? We can start with Manish. With prices unlikely to ease anytime soon, how do your travel and events budget look this year and next year?
Look, I think a lot of points were covered by Akshay when he was talking about. If you look at also from India perspective, the dynamics between India or Singapore or any other large countries is that there are many business cities in one country vis-a-vis the number of cities or destination that Singapore would have. So with that said, domestic travel has definitely picked up in India, and we see a rise happening in that, which is impacting the flight cost and the hotel cost. The hotel costs have gone up from what it was in 2019 and 2020 to 21. But now the prices are really going high, and I think that's what is happening in most of the other, including Middle East or South Africa region and all. You'll see prices are going up, the demands are increasing. But important point is the business travel is getting competition from the leisure travel. and that is shooting the price high. Corporates are also looking at deciding between an absolutely necessary travel vis-a-vis whether that business can be done over a Zoom or a, MS Teams and things like that. And people have got used to it also. Plus the border restriction which are there in different countries also holds people back, right? So, and when you enter a country and you're seeing people with masks and a lot of things, you do get frightened. Now with that kind of situation arising, business travel still from the budget point of view, we haven't really reached the numbers that were happening pre-pandemic. Uh, for now, I mean, if you look at a SME or a mid-segment companies or smaller companies, they haven't really come down to decide on the exact travel budget that it should be. Uh, I would say about 34% travel managers were expecting that the numbers would go closer to pre-pandemic by end of 2020, by 2022, but I don't think it's really happening. It is still struggling, right? So it's kind of 8% is what it has still come to. If I have to look at from 2021 by end of 2021, I think the different variants also cause those problem. And rightly said, China is a market. Which also, when it is not opening, it is also sending wrong messages. It's also sending messages or holding people back. Plus the war which is happening, that also is kind of impacting in the overall people's travel requirements as such. So from a corporate perspective, if you have to look at it from the travel budgets, I think it's more of a decision which is being taken basis what the prices are available, but the flight costs and the hotel costs are really going up. So it will still take some time to rationalize what are those right numbers that is going to be. But at this point in time, a lot of a lot of companies are still going and doing ad hoc bookings where it is absolutely required to travel or holding it back. The good part is the events have started, the MICE have started, the association events are starting, which is a good sign because both from an industry business perspective, and the other side which is really impacting also, if I have to look at from India point of view, there's a lot of, a new industry has come up or a new segment which is the unicorns which has contributed heavily towards, and I think that has also boosted travel toward the US by them because of fundraising. Singapore again, there are a lot of VCs sitting out there. So those are the signs which are also making an impact on. So there is no particular aspect you can say from what it used to be pre-pandemic or corporate travel has got. These are the framework that you're working on. The industry itself has evolved. There are a lot of companies who have reduced, who have come down, and there is a new kind of company which has come up, especially the unicorn. And I'm sure unicorns also play a critical role in Singapore as well. So from that aspect, the rationalization or the average pricing that it should be or the budget that one can look at, it's a tough time for travel managers to actually decide that. It is their dependency on business is very high. If the business is requiring that, otherwise there are no numbers to go back to. You don't have that data to really tell you, what was my average expense in 2018, and then I can come back and make a budget for 2019. But come after 2020 and 2021, if you look at now, we don't have those data as to how things are going to be, and nobody is able to guarantee that. Okay, I'll have so many employees who would be traveling. So those numbers are still in air, and it depends on the business. It depends on the process. Companies are also making a good amount of money, especially in the IT/ITS segment. So it will, and their travel is dependent on the customers that they are catering to. So you will see the travel from India is happening more towards Philippines because of the BPO business, South Africa because of the BPO business, or toward the US because of the IT/ITS. But those trends are still picking up. At this point of time, SMEs are really traveling more towards domestic travel and to extent to Middle East or Southeast Asia is how I see. So the budgets will take some time to rationalize, to get an average. And I think that's the trend. We will see something really coming concrete if, I hope, God forbid, that no new variant comes up. And how people are going to react when China opens its border is also going to be critical. So with that happening, you will see by the first quarter or the second quarter of 2023 is where you will start seeing some dynamic which is becoming predictable. At this point in time, you're not able to predict the number. That's my opinion, and I think I get these opinion basis what I see in my place or I see from talking to trial managers in other companies. A lot of companies, barring a few large ones, the travel department or the transport department itself has got so affected that there are very limited number of people who are managing these businesses now, and it has come under the vertical of admin or
Yeah.
facility management. So there are a lot of changes happening on those lines also. So to get the right manpower back, even in the corporate, to manage travel the way it used to be managed, is going to take a lot of time to get the right set of people who can understand the dynamics and who can really add value to the overall budgets and expenses.
Yeah, thanks. Manish, I just want to clarify, when you say unicorn traveling, you're really referring to those who have already secured a
During the 2021 phase, uh, the average was that every 5 days there was a unicorn coming up in India.
okay.
Right. So,
Okay.
the number of these fintech companies, which is what was going, or the companies which were rising up, payment gateway companies. There are a lot of these companies who have really come up, who were lesser known. They were not even there in 18, 19,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They came up in an average of 4 years. A company is becoming a unicorn, which was not the trend it used to be.
Okay.
So when these companies are getting funded, when these fundings are coming in, it is definitely impacting. There is a lot of money coming in, so people who have to travel, and those travels are going up. So you will have to keep an eye on the unicorns as to how this
Right.
industry is going to be
Okay,
focusing
so
on.
it's specifically unicorns and not the baby startups, yeah.
No more.
Okay, cool. Ajay, now, can you talk about your company's budget for business travel and events this year and the next?
Thank you, Manish, and thank you, Akshay. I think a lot of insight is given by Manish and Akshay about the industry, how the people are just managing. Definitely, as a corporate, there is impact on the budget also, and I used to say it is a cascading effect because of the COVID. There is some impact on the profitability as well as on the top line, and parallelly, if you see the cascading effect on the is a kind of low hanging fruit for the business travel, and we have just structured the if you see in the organization, it is a pyramidal structure, the top quartile, where if you see the top management, middle management, the lower middle management, how we will just structure the deal because at the lower management, there is a mass movement, and where we will define some business travel is only for the APAC, where if you see the middle management, we have defined for the different country where the budget is little bit higher for the top people are just going to Europe and other things, and how we play just structure. And definitely parallelly, we are just talking to our partners also so that we are able to optimize the cost, and where we are just looking is a different innovation solution so that we are able to remove the non-value added processes and we are able to optimize or maybe the reduce our budget cost.
Okay. Now, companies are willing to pay for business class tickets. Is that happening in your company?
Yeah, I think if you see, it is a part of the cost optimization. And earlier, people were just traveling from A location to B location. There was a different approval hierarchy. Now people have just is a structure, and parallelly we have used some technology so that people are able to get the approval process through the system only, and we have changed our business rules also in order to optimize. Where if you see, we have just changed our structure also. Only the CEO and the top management, they can just travel through the business class. Maybe other people, they can just travel through the premium economy class, and the other people, they can just travel through the economy only. And parallelly, we are using some technology is a digital mode, is based upon the must or want, based upon the must and the want. People are just planning their business meetings so that people are able to optimize the cost.
Okay. Let's talk about cost savings now. Manish, where are you discovering potential savings for corporate travel?
So I just wanted to actually add to this point, but the question actually fits the bill here. So if you look at in the last 2 years, another area of concern, or I would say responsible travel, has also picked up, is because of of companies looking at the sustainability goals. The sustainability has actually added a lot to the decision making on the budgets as well. There are companies which are giving options to employees to decide which category they want to travel. Uh, Business class travel adds more carbon footprint. That's how you're calculating it. They're looking at encouraging people to travel at the whatever the best cost that can be. And there are some travel trust startups, which are actually giving employees points for that, which is which has a direct impact. The impact is that it brings down the cost of the travel for the company, even if your policy allows, but is now giving the decision back to the employees to decide as to what they would look at. And from the fact that everybody is becoming more responsible towards the environment and things like that. So sustainability definitely is playing a bigger role now, and that is adding, and then companies are calculating the carbon footprint that they're adding to and how much that is towards reaching the goal of net zero. And that is where globally every country, large companies are actually adding value to that. But to your question, can you come back to that question?
Yes. Where are you discovering cost savings for corporate
So
travel?
cost saving, like I said, is going to be like if you're putting it back to the employees are deciding what it is, and companies are encouraging them to bring down to choose the right cost in terms of flight, economy or premium or business class. So this is being given back. Otherwise, if you look at the category of people who are traveling most are people from sales. Because that is what many companies are also focusing on improving the business. So with lesser number of people traveling and specific set of people only required to travel at this point in time, because most of the business meetings today, earlier the meetings used to happen between the sales guy and let's say the customer out there, but now many companies are at people at different levels, the tech guy, the infosec guy, all of them are required, and that is now happening online. So those are really impacting as well. Companies are also looking at not compromising on the quality of the hotel or the flight because of the fact that the health risk still remains in mind. So I would say not all companies, I would not like to comment on other companies, but at least I know some of the companies in that they are allowing employees to stay in a better hotel, travel in a good flight, or so that you remain safe. Your health should not get affected, and those are steps you won't like to take. But from MICE coming down, your expenses on MICE has really reduced. The kind of events, the number of events that used to happen, the number of team meeting that used to happen at off-site locations have come down. So now that is going to take time to revive, but signs are there. I think that's where the cost is also being reduced, and those costs which is getting reduced is being utilized towards absolutely necessary travel. So travel has become more responsible, if I have to say, from a company's perspective. Employees are taking a call, businesses taking a call, the CXOs are taking involvement in terms of what is required, what is not required, and overall travel continues being something as an absolute necessary requirement of a company when it is required to travel. But the focus is moving toward more on the real estate part, toward the employees coming back to office. The bigger challenge at this point in time is getting the employees back to office, which is still not very clear. So I think that's where the travel, I would say the cost is really, there are not major measures from my opinion is being made, because lesser number of people traveling, it is only giving companies to spend it where it is required. Because if you're traveling to a city where it is, let's say Singapore, and the hotel prices are high, how do you save the cost? So you'll have to go, because you will decide between whether I look at my 20 billion business, or should I look at the price of the hotel, which is more important for
Yeah,
me from
absolutely.
that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
a business call.
Yeah.
Karen, I'd just like to kind of put things into perspective for the foreseeable future. Um, the value of that cost saving element, um, in general, for the organization has gone down, because right now there is a huge amount of focus on employee well-being, and
Super.
of course the sustainability aspect of it. So you kind of look at it as a triangle with three goals to meet, which is around the employee well-being, sustainability, as well as the cost budgets or cost savings that are to be played. And in overall, you would find that the teams, the actual travelers, are putting less emphasis on the cost of the trip, because
Okay.
that value of meeting a customer or meeting a colleague after 3 years is all of a sudden so much higher than what it used to be if you met them every 2 months or every 3 months. So all of a sudden the prices are 3 times higher, but you know what? It makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations have moved towards remote working or work from anywhere. So all of a sudden you don't have a pre-structured place for you to meet, innovate, and thus bringing people together through meetings, internal, let's say, meetings, incentive travel the value of that aspect has never been higher than what it is at the moment. So within the CWT meetings and events space, today we see events happening at they're about 65% higher than 2021. So the uptick is massive, and the virtual events have gone down significantly. They're like 70% lower. So they're 30% of what they were in 2021. So it kind of is very clear that virtual events have their place, but what they were in 2020 and 2021 was more of a compromise than
Yeah.
actually a trend.
Yeah.
And we do see that kind of a 70, let's say 30% of 2021 being a more standard, or maybe even lower than that, as the more standard approach to the virtual events.
Okay. Thank you so much, Akshay. Ajaay, tell me.
Yeah, a part of the purchase department, definitely my core KRA is to optimize the cost, because if you see before 70, everybody used to say is a cost cutting, then there was a new term cost reduction, and now everybody is talking about the cost optimization. Parallelly is a new concept, is a value add. And definitely as a corporate, we are very conscious about the cost, and definitely we are just working with our partner to optimize the cost, and we have renegotiated the contract with the partners and based upon the volumes, and parallelly we are using a lot of technology also, so that people are able to understand which area people are going, and how, whether we need to do the better rate negotiation with the same partner based upon the volumes and other things. And parallelly we are talking to the internal employees also in terms of the awareness, so that people are able to understand there should not be any deviation in the policy, and we have redefined our business rules also in order to optimize the cost.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Now, Manish, how does your company define a successful business trip?
How do you define a sustainable
Yeah.
trip? Okay, sorry.
So what indicators do you use? What
See,
KPIs?
a successful business trip is directly proportional to the revenue that you're getting in, right? So revenue is basically defining a successful business trip. And like I said, most of the business travel is today happening with a larger number of folks from the sales, then from the IT, or at the on-site travel that is required from the business impact that it makes for any company is what is defining a successful business travel. Uh, uh, Also, the element of a little, because you're encouraging your employees to go. A lot of companies today have gone to different models of working. Akshay already brought that out. We are calling it as a hub and spoke model. So there is a HO, and then there are people are working from everywhere, and they are going into the co-working spaces and working out. So if I have to look at from for me, a successful business is totally dependent on the revenue impact that is going to make on the business that we have, and if it is growing, if it is making business look good, if it is getting a better visibility for the companies, because what is also happening at this point in time is the customers are looking at which are the companies which are more aggressive, more committed, is immediately willing to meet up and talk. The digital fatigue has definitely come in, so obviously the like he said, virtual events are not happening. Virtual meetings are still happening where it is required. But companies, which are the sales-oriented companies, would be looking at going and having those physical meeting with the customer, because the impact of having a meeting face-to-face is much different than having it on virtual, right? I like seeing faces here who's looking and listening to us, then looking at a blank screen, which I don't know whether the person sitting on the other side is actually listening to me or talking or even available there, right? So it's a very different. It's a people thing, right? And you brought it out in the newspaper today, but the human capital aspect, I still believe, is very important, and I think that is where it is kind of setting those new benchmarks for the companies, and the revenue impact will be the most critical at this point in time in terms of how do you rationalize a business travel at this point.
Well, I imagine it would be a lot easier to track quantitative outcomes of a business trip, right? Such as the value of the contract signed, like you said. However, business trips have also been known to provide motivation and access to new knowledge for corporate travelers. So, Ajaay, does your company recognize impact on staff performance as a part of a trip ROI?
Yeah, definitely. If you see, it has every coin has the two aspect. One is a tangible, another is an intangible. Where if you see the intangible, we have link with the is a performance, or maybe if it's a competence analysis of the individual. If I am going to the client side where I'm just talking to the client, I am able to resolve this, is a more collaboration, connect, and parallelly we need to see whether I'm able to adapt the culture of the organization, or maybe the location or the country, so that once I'm coming back, I'm just reflecting all these things in my company also during the working hour with my colleagues and other things. It is a kind of intangible benefit people are getting from the travel, where if you see in the past, last 2 years, we are just connected with the digital mode, and I have seen people have just lost their connectivity, maybe communication, or maybe the collaboration with the colleague, or maybe the client, or maybe the other partners. I think with the help of the business travel, people are able to see all this is a positive sign, and people are able to create the ecosystem, and the same reflection is coming in the organization in terms of the deliverables.
Yeah, super. Akshay, does CWT have research on the impact of business trip on staff performance and well-being?
Yeah, the return on investment of business travel. I think this is a well-known fact that business travel plays a critical component to an organization's growth and the growth of any country's economy as well. So that is not a fact that is being doubted here. But what companies always wanted to know was a trip that is being made for different purposes. How does it have an impact on my organization? And what we do with a lot of these organizations, or what we calculate, is a trip ROI for them, and that basically is a case where we take in what are the KPIs for the organization. So I'll just take one example there and say, your KPI as an organization today is to grow your sales by X%, to have your employee satisfaction rate at Y%, and to grow in a specific 3 markets, and you name those markets as well. We take in the data from your sales side of things. We can take in data from some of the health measures as well. So stuff that impacts employee well-being. So as an example, we say how many holidays does an employee take, or sick leaves an employee is taking after taking the business trip. It has a direct correlation, and bringing all of that data together with all of, let's say, the data that we have for that customer, as well as for the huge amount of benchmark data we have, we create what we call as that trip ROI. So traveler X, who's traveling for a sales meeting in business class, can have a much higher ROI than an internal, let's say, meeting that was having just in economy class, even if the price difference was a lot. And organizations seem to be moving more and more towards that. Rather, we see now a dimension around sustainability is also coming into play. So trip ROI will also have a completely different aspect, as we see over the next few years. Instead of having just the monetary budgets, you will have carbon budgets for every department. And the trip ROI needs to be a multi-dimensional approach, where yes, you spend X money, but you also spend X amount of footprint, and does that justify you traveling or taking that trip?
Thank you so much for that. You can just raise your hand, and either I'll come to you or someone will come to you with a mic. Any questions? No? Then I have another question for Manish, actually. Travelers' well-being, we've discussed that a lot on this panel. How is your company doing? Is your company doing more to address travelers' well-being this year, and in what ways, and how is it impacting your budget?
See, companies used to talk about it, right? It has just taken more precedence at this point in time, because human asset is the most important asset at this point in time, right? And it is always necessary for business. The cost of hiring an employee has gone high, so employee retention becomes paramount for any company. And when you have employee retention, you also ensure that your employee well-being is happening, which is where the work from home, work from anywhere has all taken precedence, right? And this concept of working is not going to come back the way pre-pandemic used to be. We are not going to see that happening. Also, you need to understand that the Gen Z today, the current generation which is coming as a new workforce into the industry, are more aware. They are more digitally savvy. They are digital natives, right? So they have more information. They are deciding things basis what they are seeing, and they are concerned about when they're taking a role with a company as to what measures you're taking. I remember there was a time, and I won't go back too far, but if you look at 2018, 2017, those point in time, including when I was in a travel company, employees used to ask, the millennials used to ask the companies, what are your travel policy, right? I don't think that question is now really being asked too often. But what they're really asking now is, or wanting to know is, what kind of measures you're taking from employee well-being. Do you have work from home? Are you providing me insurance, insurance like the way it used to be? Do you provide transport for me to come to office, right? So those are things which has taken precedence in many countries as well. And employee transportation, for example, which I am into right now, was never something which was high in demand in other countries. There were a few countries where employee transportation was top of the mind, like India being one, South Africa being another one. Philippines never had that employee transportation, something which was top of the mind. Today, companies in Philippines are asking for employee transportation. These are the changes which is coming in from employees' expectation from a company. So a lot of decisions companies are making are basis what employees are expecting in return, because employees won't tell you, but your churn rate will tell you. When your employees are leaving, and in the last 2 years, if you see, a lot of hiring has happened and a lot of people have changed jobs, right? The number of jobs people would have changed during this period is much higher than an average longevity which an employee would have had in the company. So companies are taking well-being as a very small company, big company, large company. Everybody is concerned about employee health, and not just employee. Because of doing virtual meetings, you have entered people's home. You now know about how many kids I have,
And
I whether
cats.
live my parents or not, how many pets I have. So and all of those things have really gone into. So let's say if I'm on a call with Ajaay, and Ajaay sees that, okay, my children are running behind and there's a dog running, he would actually, when we meet, he'll ask, how is your daughter doing? How's your pet? Which dog you have? I mean, who used to ask those questions? No, because now you've entered the homes, right? So when you have entered the homes of employees, employee well-being is important, and you cannot undermine it anymore. And employees are concerned. They're asking these questions. And when these questions are being asked, you need to ensure to lay out the measures that you have taken. So, for example, companies were showing it massively when the vaccination drive was going on in India, right? And company was making, I would say, they were doing posts, social media posts about the vaccination drive that we did in the office. The employees came in, the families were given vaccinations, first shot, second shot, third shot. All of those things were being shown. Why were you showing them? You were showing not because people as an individual would take those measures. And I think that has also impacted in India. A lot of people have come back because the vaccinations have been so good, I mean, and it has been effective. So, but with that, I think the companies were showing their human side. They were showing that they were concerned about the employees, and like I said, human asset are important. The getting the right talent, retaining the right talent, and using that talent towards business is what it is. End of the day, there are no free lunches, right? So for employees also, there's nothing like free lunches, and you cannot just hold them just because of salary. Salary is not something which is now driving, because there are enough companies who are paying good amount, but it is about the working culture that you're creating, the kind of atmosphere that you're giving. If you're giving them, work from home options or hybrid work has taken precedence, and this will continue. You're no more required to come 24 days in a month. You can come for a week in the month, or you can choose when you want to come. You can look at your roster. The rosters are basically by employees deciding when they're coming, and the team managers are deciding when should I keep a meeting, because you're not really forcing anybody to come, right? So those are the things that is happening, and I think that's obviously will be impacting the well-being. And let me tell you, well-being doesn't mean health, physical health. It's also the mental health.
Yeah.
The mental health has also taken a lot of precedence. People have felt the need to talk to others, meet others, and then the people tendencies or societal tendencies had gone up. So these are things which companies have to look at, and I think that's where employee well-being is right on top there.
I think one of the things we saw while talking to a few organizations was they were talking about that sense of belonging that an organization needs to create, and thus how do you get that for your average employee. And there are many ways that they're looking at it, and I think meeting the business travel is definitely one aspect of it. But what we do see is incentive travel getting a big precedence. So there was an organization we did. We used to do an event for them, maybe about 2,000 people event, and 2 weeks ago they did one in Singapore with 5,000 people. So we said, I mean, what's the rationale? And they talked about the fact that they've just increased that level for the employees and said, yes, a few of you would not have usually attended these kind of events, but we want you to attend, get that sense of belonging, that sense of community that you have to create. Yes, it does cost more, but getting a new employee onboarded, getting some of those things happening en masse for large organizations is very, very tough. So it's a very small cost to pay, and I think that's one of the things that you find that the travel managers and travel procurement community has raised their profile within the spectrum. One, because of the health crisis that happened, and travel managers played a huge role in making getting travelers back to safety, and all of a sudden attending daily meetings with the CEO and CFOs, and now they've kind of, a lot of them have used that kind of access to elevate their travel programs, and the ones who have done that have truly created that the right place for travel within their own organizations, and we see a lot of them now talking about that value-based travel management and not necessarily a very cost-centric travel management as well, and they do see that trend continuing despite all the uncertainties, all those numbers that you see up there. I mean, this is just now one aspect of what business travel is all about, and you will see companies who will be successful long term, and they talk about it as well. I mean, they do see that talent will be the single biggest element of who comes out of this more successful than the other, and thus these elements are very, very small aspect of the bigger story, which is the employee well-being as well as the growth that the companies have to drive for their shareholders.
Okay. I want to get back to the cost discussion. So, Ajaay, can you tell me, what do you need your suppliers to be aware of when it comes to supporting you and your travel procurement, especially now when the cost is rising, but your company, your business is still valued, right?
Yeah, I think first we need to understand the structure regarding the MICE event or maybe the business travel. One is a business, second is a partner, and the third is an industry. In industry, you will find is the airlines or maybe the hotels or maybe the land arrangement, all these things. I think all we need to work in a very collaborative manner, where if it is the role of the partner or the supplier is very critical, where they need to translate the voice of the customer or business to the industry, so that end of the day they need to fulfill, or they need to fulfill the business requirement. I think as a corporate, we are just looking as a 4-dimension. It is called the CBSE. If I am traveling from, is a large group traveling from India to Singapore, there are 4 different quadrants. One is a C stand for the connectivity, where people are looking, is it direct flight, or whether at what time we will reach, whether we need to go for some early check-in, all these things. And second is a B stand for the budget. Definitely budget is a critical element in the MICE event, where if you see, we have some ROIs based upon the business incentive, and parallelly we have some cost targets also. Normally we have defined some benchmark. Based upon that, we just define the budget. And the second is a third quadrant is a S stand for the safety and the security of our employees based upon the after the COVID and the where if you see Ukraine and the Russia war and all these things people are looking, and parallelly I think the role of the business partner is very important in terms of sharing the protocols, or maybe how the country has relaxed their protocols in terms of the COVID and what are the other political challenge and all these things. And the last is the experience is very important element in the fourth quadrant, where everybody is just coming back from X location to Y location, or maybe the India people are just coming with the sweet memories, and whether the people are coming with the motivated and they have taken the higher target for the next year, so that people are just planning to go to some different location.
Okay. We're coming to the end of our sessions. We have got Ajaay, Manish, and Akshay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.